I stayed because he was trying, but I left because I was always the one trying harder. Have you ever stayed in a relationship, not because it was working, but because you could see how hard they were trying? They made promises, they apologized, they admitted their faults, and you told yourself at least they're aware, at least they're trying, at least they want to be better. So you waited and waited until one day you realized you can't build a relationship on effort that never evolves into change. This is the story of Lena and Chris, a relationship defined by hope and the heartbreaking realization that love without growth eventually becomes exhaustion. Lena met Chris in a summer writing program in New York. She was quiet, thoughtful, analytical. He was passionate, impulsive, and deeply charismatic. She said yes to dinner because he made her laugh. He said he liked her because she listened like no one else. They fell for each other quickly and hard. Chris was all emotion. He loved big, cried during movies, wrote her poems on napkins. Lena felt seen in a way she hadn't in years, but with that intensity came unpredictability. He'd get overwhelmed and disappear for a few days without notice. He forgot important plans, birthdays, calls with her parents, even her promotion dinner. But he always apologized. He'd say, "I'm sorry, I know I'm bad at this," or "I'm working on it. I swear I'm trying." And Lena believed him. She believed him when he said he wanted to be better. She believed him when he bought a stack of relationship books but never finished them. She believed him when he promised he'd show up next time, and sometimes he did. And sometimes he didn't. Still, she gave him grace. She adjusted, planned less, asked for less, celebrated her wins alone, made excuses to friends and family. She became the buffer between Chris and the world, and told herself that this was what it meant to love someone through their healing. But healing never came. The trying remained. The change didn't. One night, after yet another missed dinner, and yet another, "I'm sorry, I'm just not good with structure," Lena found herself alone in the apartment again, reheating cold pasta and staring at the empty chair across from her. And for the first time she wasn't sad. She was exhausted, tired of carrying the emotional weight of the relationship, tired of being understanding while never being understood, tired of mistaking intention for effort. That night when Chris came home with flowers and another apology, she didn't get angry. She didn't cry. She simply said, "I know you're trying, but I can't keep being the only one this relationship works for." He stood silent, and that silence told her everything. The next day, she packed a bag. She didn't leave because he wasn't trying. She left because she realized she'd been trying enough for both of them, and still it wasn't enough. Lena and Chris's story is a deeply familiar one for anyone who has fallen in love with potential. Sometimes we stay because they care, because they say the right things, because they're trying, and we think that's love. That effort is the same as progress. But trying isn't love if it always comes with delay, distraction, and disappointment. Real love shows up, not just in words, but in consistency, in change, in accountability. It's not your job to carry the full emotional load while someone else promises they'll get stronger eventually. Trying isn't a gift. It's a requirement. And if you're the only one truly holding the relationship together, that's not love. That's imbalance. You don't need someone who's working on it. You need someone who does the work. Community reactions, "You still trying for us." Both "This was my last relationship" to the letter. He meant well always, but it never turned into action. I kept telling myself his heart was in the right place until mine broke. 144.3K likes. Intentions don't build a home, actions do. You all talk, no follow through. He bought all the books, listened to all the podcasts, said he was growing, but nothing ever changed. I ended up parenting a man who said he didn't want to be treated like a child. 140 powders, 2K likes. I can't love someone into becoming who they promised they'd be. You do, good man, just not ready. People always said, but he's a good guy. And he was. But being a good person doesn't mean you're a good partner. I need follow-through, not just feelings. 136.5K likes. Being kind isn't the same as being dependable. Intentions are not commitments. Trying is not the same as trying with me. I was patient, loyal, emotionally available, and I was met with, I'm working on it, for years. 131.8K likes. You're not hard to love. You're just tired of loving for two. U20 Ico's piece, over potential. The line, she didn't leave because he wasn't trying. She left because she was trying enough for both of them, made me cry. That was me. It took me years to learn effort is only love when it moves. 129.7K likes. I left quietly, but I've never felt louder in my own life. Closing reflection. Trying is a beautiful beginning, but not a permanent place to live. You deserve a relationship where both people show up, grow, and carry the weight together. If you're the only one building the future, it's not a partnership. It's a performance. And you don't owe anyone your exhaustion just because they meant well. He loved me most when I wasn't hurting. Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt loved, but only when you were at your best? When you were calm, pleasant, smiling, agreeable, they held you close. But the moment you were overwhelmed, upset, emotional, or struggling, they distanced themselves. And slowly, you learned to suppress your pain, just to keep the peace. You became quiet about your sadness, careful with your honesty. And one day you realized you weren't loved for who you were loved for who you pretended to be. This is the story of Tessa and James. A relationship built on affection, but only when it was easy. And the painful moment Tessa realized love that disappears in difficulty isn't love at all. Tessa met James at a weekend cabin trip with mutual friends. He was kind, attentive, a bit shy, and deeply drawn to her warmth. You light up every room, he told her within the first 2 weeks of dating. She felt seen, adored, chosen. James loved her laugh, her optimism, the way she comforted others. He said she was easy to be around. Relaxing, he called her. Effortless. And for a while, she was. They went on road trips, binge-watched old movies, fell asleep, tangled together while talking about their childhoods. She told herself, this feels safe. But then, life got hard. Tessa's best friend was diagnosed with cancer. Work became stressful. She started having anxiety again, something she hadn't experienced in years. She became quieter, needed more reassurance, started crying sometimes for no reason. James began pulling away, not cruelly, subtly. He stopped initiating plans. He grew impatient when she repeated worries. He said things like, "You're just so different now," or "I miss the you from a few months ago." The first time she cried in front of him, really cried, he changed the subject. The second time, he got up and left the room. She apologized for being too much, too emotional, too heavy. He didn't ask her not to feel that way, he just didn't stay long enough to hold her through it. And so she learned her softness was welcome. Her sadness was not. Her light was easy to love. Her shadows, not so much. One night, after a small panic attack, she reached for his hand. He didn't pull away, but he didn't hold back either. She asked, "Does this scare you?" He answered, I just don't know how to help when you're like this. She wanted to scream, I don't need you to fix me. I just need you to stay. But she didn't, because she knew what would happen if she pushed. So instead, she went quiet again, smiled more, cried less, or at least hid it better. Until one day, she realized she was no longer in a relationship. She was performing inside of one, and no matter how beautiful the stage, she was exhausted. She ended things 2 weeks later. He asked why. She said, because I don't want a love that disappears when I do. Tessa and James's story is one so many know intimately, the experience of being loved conditionally. When you are cheerful, calm, emotionally easy, you're adored. But the moment you need support, patience, presence, you're labeled difficult. That's not love. That's preference. Real love doesn't flinch when your sadness shows up. It doesn't retreat when your anxiety rises. It doesn't silence you with discomfort. It sits in the mess with you. It listens. It stays. You are not meant to be loved only when you're smiling. You deserve someone who holds you in the storm, not just the sunlight. And if you find yourself shrinking to stay lovable, that's not a relationship. That's a performance. You are allowed to feel fully. And the person who truly loves you will never ask you to disappear in order to be loved. Community reactions, you taught your sunshine or silent. This story broke me. I was always the happy one. But when I got depressed, he said I wasn't who he fell in love with anymore. It took me a long time to realize that says more about him than it ever did about me. 152.6K likes. If your love only survives my light, it's not strong enough for my truth, who only loved when smiling. My ex used to praise me for being low maintenance. What he meant was, I didn't ask for much. The moment I did, he called me too much. 147.8K. Likes I deserve a love that welcomes the whole of me, not just the pleasant parts. You emotional, but worthy. He said, I don't know how to handle you when you cry. So I stopped crying. And then one day, I stopped feeling. This story helped me realize I had numbed myself into invisibility. 142. 9K likes, I want to be felt, not managed. You let me be messy. This hit hard. I'm tired of performing health and happiness so people don't leave. Real love should make space for hard days, not punish you for having them. 139.1K likes. If my pain makes you run, then you were never truly holding me. You from performer to person. Reading this gave me the courage to leave a relationship where I had to earn love with politeness and emotional restraint. I am no longer reducing myself to be tolerated. 135.4K likes. From now on, I will be loved fully or not at all. Tessa's story reminds us that love is not tested in the easy days, it's revealed in the hard ones. If someone cannot hold space for your tears, your fears, your breakdowns, they are not holding you. They're holding an idea of you. You deserve a love that doesn't just celebrate you when you shine, but stays with you when you're undone. Stop shrinking. Stop performing. The right love will see every part of you and choose you still. He always fought for me when I was already walking away. Have you ever loved someone who only became the person you needed the moment you decided to leave? When you begged for more, they went silent. When you stayed loyal, they drifted. But the second you started to step away, suddenly they remembered how to show up. And for a while, that was enough to pull you back. This is the story of Lara and Miles, a relationship built on emotional delay, where effort always came late, and love only felt urgent when she was already halfway gone. Lara met Miles at a mutual friend's engagement party. He was warm, witty, and incredibly self-assured. She was immediately drawn to his charm, the way he could command a room and still make her feel like the only one in it. They dated for 6 months before she started to notice the pattern. He was present until he wasn't. They'd have 3 amazing weeks, constant communication, thoughtful gestures, words like, "I've never felt this way before." Then suddenly, he'd pull back, go quiet, stop responding. Not disappear, exactly, just become emotionally foggy. And Lara, being the patient one, always gave space, always assumed the best, always said, "Let me know when you're ready to talk." He always came back. A few days later, a few weeks later, sometimes with an apology, sometimes with charm, sometimes with a grand gesture that erased the ache just enough to make her stay. "I'm just bad at this, but I'm learning. You mean too much to me. I'm scared of messing it up. I'll do better, I promise." She clung to those moments, believed them, until the next withdrawal, and the next, and the next. She stayed, because she loved who he became when she was walking away. He'd show up with flowers, long texts, late-night drives. He'd whisper all the right things into her hair and swear he was serious this time. But only ever then. Never when she needed him without a crisis. Never when she asked gently. Never when she stayed. One night, after waiting 3 hours for him to show up for dinner, a dinner she cooked candles, lit wine, chilled, she sat alone at the table and thought, "He doesn't fight for me when I'm here. Only when I'm leaving." And it hit her. That's not love. That's fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of guilt. Fear of being the bad guy. But not the kind of love that shows up because it wants to, not just because it's scared to lose the comfort of her presence. So the next time he disappeared, she didn't text. The next time he came back, she didn't open the door. And when he said, "Why are you giving up on me?" she replied, "I'm not. I gave up waiting for you to choose me before I was already gone." Lara and Miles's story is a painful truth for many. Some people don't recognize your value until they feel the absence of it. But real love shouldn't be activated by loss. It should be cultivated by presence. You shouldn't have to almost leave for someone to remember how to love you. You shouldn't have to break down to be held or threaten to walk away just to be heard. A relationship built on emotional inconsistency will starve you, because affection delivered in panic is not devotion. It's not your job to keep leaving just to be reminded you're wanted. The right love will choose you while you're still standing there, not just when your hand is on the doorknob. Community reactions. You stayed one too many times. This was me for 4 years. Every time I packed my bags, he suddenly became everything I needed. But he only ever loved the version of me that was slipping away. 161.8K likes. Don't let them train you to mistake panic for passion. You, when leaving, becomes a test. He only wrote me letters when I said I was done. Only made changes when I started moving on. It took me years to see that love should be consistent, not conditional. 158.3K likes. Real love doesn't need an ultimatum. You always leaving to feel. Seeing this story feels like a mirror. He didn't show up for birthdays, plans, conversations. But when I went quiet, he flooded me with attention. And I kept mistaking urgency for care. 153. 9K likes. Love isn't love if it only shows up in crisis. You are being exhausted from rebuilding. He said, "You never give me a chance." I gave him dozens. The truth is, he just never showed up until it was almost too late, and eventually it was. 149.7K likes. I want a love that doesn't make me feel like I'm always one step from the exit. You leaving with both feet this time. The line. You shouldn't have to almost leave to feel chosen made me cry. This story gave me the closure I never got. 145.6 EK likes. If someone only values your presence when it's threatened, they never valued it at all. Love is not about how someone chases you once you're walking away. It's about how they hold you while you stay. The most honest love doesn't beg, bargain, or perform rescue missions. It shows up quietly, consistently, and long before you're halfway out the door. You deserve to be chosen without having to leave first.